So some of you may remember that around 9 months ago I received an email from the BBC and I mentioned it on this video. And that's because a representative of the BBC reached out to me recently to ask if I may be interested in a program that they're putting together of why so many British people are flocking to Thailand. I think some of my views are probably a little bit too strong for something like that. Well, within a few minutes of posting that video, many of my subscribers are long-term expats here, many are from the UK as well. They warned me, do not do anything with the BBC because they will twist your words. And it turns out they were completely right in producing their new documentary about Thailand, in which they spread a lot of BS, which we're going to be going through today. And I'd like to thank my subscribers for giving that pre-warning. And so as you can see here, the email was presented under somewhat of a ruse. It was about fleeing Brits coming to Thailand for the entrepreneurship, the working here, the living here, becoming expats here. The majority of the topics that they suggested to me in the email were quite positive. And yet the documentary that came out was amplified stereotypes, painting Thailand as a dangerous place, which is absolutely crazy when you compare the crime statistics to places like the UK, for example. And also the investigation was mainly filmed around the sex and drugs scene, which happens in every city in the world, and that I would argue there are far more dangerous cities out there to cover in your documentary. I and a number of other YouTubers have tried to present both the positive and the negative parts of Thailand. It's not a perfect place, not a utopia, but as ever with the BBC, I found that the Thailand documentary was completely one-sided, completely biased, and we're going to go through some of the themes and counteract some of the points in today's video. The BBC tried to paint Thailand as some kind of crime hub where it is dangerous to live and dangerous to walk the streets. If you look at the homicide rate in Thailand, it is slightly higher than the UK, but that is one of the only metrics regarding crime that it is higher than. They could have gone to any other city in the world and probably found far worse crime, especially in Europe. Looking at the overall crime index of the UK versus Thailand, you will find that Thailand is a 38 and the UK is at a 48, which actually means that as a country as a whole, it is less safe for Brits to stay in the UK than it is to come over to Thailand. Also, if we add in a little bit of survey data, it shows that people actually feel safer at night in Thailand. 65% of respondents saying that they feel safer walking the streets of Thailand at night, whereas in the UK the statistic is just 50%. And so of course there is crime in Thailand, there's crime everywhere in the world where there is people, but I think the BBC could have found a much better city if they wanted to focus on crime as a big problem of a nation. It seems to me that this is a massive reach to paint Thailand in a negative light, probably because they can't come to terms with the fact that many Brits do want to flee to Thailand. In fact, a good majority of my subscribers would sell their left ball in order to be able to come and move here, but they cannot because of the financial conditions that they're in and the austerity conditions that they're in the UK. Many of them are stuck in the UK, and I guess this documentary is a little bit of an effort from the BBC to reassure them that that is the correct location to live when compared with Thailand. I should also mention that in Thailand, many of the homicides are gang-related between locals. It's rare for tourists to get caught up in anything. Of course it happens, but it's rare for them to get caught up in a random act of violence. If one was to walk through London, however, the chance of getting stabbed by some random person in the street are much higher in my opinion. That's not to say that London is an inherently dangerous place or that the UK is an inherently dangerous place. That is just to say that the BBC could have probably made the documentary over in the UK and saved themselves a bit of money on the flights coming over to Thailand producing this nonsense. I think many British citizens find the BBC to be outdated, biased and definitely sensationalist. It runs from a point of political ideology. At the best of times, even when reporting on the UK, it is not factual, nor is it balanced in its views that it presents. So it really doesn't surprise me that it would come out with a documentary like this about Thailand. There will come a time, though, that the British taxpayer stands up and revolts against this kind of nonsense. I think my dad also has ripped his TV out of his house at home and he refuses to pay the BBC TV license. We really shouldn't fund these people anymore. When you've already demonstrated how biased you are as a news organisation and how non-supportive you are of the population of the UK, you should be free to report on the news, but people should not be obligated to pay for your service under threat of legal consequence. Now, do I I think that some forms of journalism, in order to show both the good points of Thailand and the bad points of Thailand, to warn people in a genuine way about some of the problems here, is necessary. Yeah, I do. I really believe, and I've tried to on this channel, give a balanced argument. So there are reasons to warn people out there of some of the things that happen in Thailand. There are horror stories. There are horror stories everywhere in the world. This is amplified a lot, I think, by the AI channels in Thailand, which focus predominantly on the purely dark stories, and it amplifies this kind of negative image of Thailand. The best thing I think you can do with the AI channels is recognize what they are and not watch them. It's your viewership that gives them power and sustainability. So really, this is not about presenting Thailand in a fully positive light. There are dark sides to everything. They could have produced a perfectly valid documentary talking about some of the criticisms of Thailand, put alongside some of the stories, interviews with expats that demonstrate some of the kindness and generosity from Thai people, but they chose to be very, very one-sided with it. Of course, there are issues still in the sex industry. There's been a lot of progress since legislation in 2008 with the Human Trafficking Act, but yes, there are still problems. The documentary was probably best made 10 years ago. What the BBC are actually doing in this situation is, instead of taking a balanced look and giving their viewers the honest representation of Thailand, they're trying to scare people to not leave the UK. In my opinion, I think that many people, and I know this because I have a channel that basically helps advise and give information for people that want to make the move. They don't want people to move here. They don't want people to leave the UK. Everybody that leaves the UK is another non-tax-paying citizen. Everybody that leaves the UK is not paying for their TV license. Everybody that stands up for the UK and that wants the best for the country, like you see in the protests all around the UK at the moment, normal people like some of my relatives are there. They are standing up because they want to see the best for the country. The BBC hates this kind of thing. It's almost like it hates reality. It hates the reality of the situation of Thailand. It hates that the citizens of the UK may want to come and live here, and it hates when the UK citizens try to stand up for their rights. If the BBC spent a little bit more time focusing on the problems in the UK instead of some of the problems here in Thailand, it would probably be a more successful organisation and would have the trust of the British people. I can tell that it doesn't have the trust of the British people because I have a good cross-section of my audience is from the UK, and they were the ones that actually warned me against participating in the documentary. It's raining. And so because of the biased documentary, I just want to put out here, as I have with a number of videos that I've made and a lot of content that I've made over the years, that I've never actually been treated as well as I've been treated here in Thailand. The Thai people that I meet on a day-to-day basis are generous, polite. Complete strangers would invite you in off the street and give you food. They're amazing people, and Thailand remains, regardless of the BBC's journalism, a wonderful place to come and a safe place for people to travel. I don't have a daughter, I have two sons, but if I did have a daughter, I would feel far safer of her walking the streets of Bangkok than I would of walking the streets of London. Numerous times in Thailand I have been without cash, I've lost my wallet, I've left my wallet on a minivan only for it to be returned to me. I have never been subject to any violence here, and I've probably got hundreds, if not thousands, of expat subscribers that could say exactly the same. I've never been in any kind of criminal situation. To be fair, I don't hang around in the tourist areas so much, but as with any country, the tourist areas are hotspots for crime. Have some travellers got in trouble here? Absolutely. Have some travellers got in trouble in London, in Paris, in New York? Absolutely. I would think there's just no story here. It's not to say that one is better than the other, and I'm not here to diss the UK. In fact, I love the UK, and I love the people of the UK, but I'm here trying to give some balance to the biased organisations in the UK that don't have the people's good in their mind. They're not thinking about the good of the British people, and when they produce such trash like this, they're not thinking about the good of the Thai people. Because documentaries like this have a huge reach, and it will affect Thailand tourism, and it will affect the perception of Thai people. As I've said before on this channel, a lot of my subscribers already know this. A lot of my subscribers have been around the block. They're quite successful people, many of them. They in both life and business and family, and just in terms of the thinking and their attitudes towards things, they already know and probably wouldn't trust an organisation like the BBC anyway. But for anybody that still does, do seek out alternative media. I've got 400 videos on here, which will show you a different side of Thailand that you saw in the BBC, both positive and negative, by the way. There are a number of YouTubers out there that are able to remain balanced. Sometimes the titles and thumbs may be clicky, but inside you are going to get a balanced perspective of both the pros and the cons, and that is the people to believe when it comes down to your opinion on Thailand. And finally, just to objectively look at a couple of other findings from the study. One, exploitation of the youth. Of course, this happens here. This is a problem, especially tourists coming over exploiting young people. It is something the Thai government has been working very hard, especially with other foreigners as well, undercover. There are a number of videos on YouTube available about that, where they send undercover foreigners in and try to find out if there is exploitation of young people going on. Of course, that's not what we want here. It's not the image that you want for Thailand. And actually, statistically, the number of people involved in the sex industry in Thailand as a percentage of the total population, you have to remember, is very, very small. So when the documentary puts the spotlight on this and says it's Thai people or Thailand, it is very, very skewed. Of course, there are people involved in the sex industry all over. There is the sex trade in the USA, of course, which I think if you work out as a percentage of the total population, the numbers are quite similar, but I'll put those down there. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. And so I'm not saying there's nothing to see here, but it's something that is being worked on. And I also want to be unbiased and reflective of the truth, of the way I see the truth anyway. And then also drug-related deaths. Well, there were 5,000 plus drug-related deaths in 2023 in the UK. You compare that to Thailand, which was around 1,800 in the same year. Drug-related deaths are actually lower in Thailand than they are in the UK. Again, this is not a criticism or an indictment of the UK. I'm just comparing the two countries to show that the BBC probably could have just stayed exactly where they were in order to report a lot of these things. And I'm quite glad that I did not take part in the documentary and that I did not leave comment in the BBC's documentary. I do hope, though, that another organisation will come and will do a more fair reporting on both sides of the situation and not sensationalize some of the negative points that are out there, or at least compare with other countries while you're doing it to show that although it may seem shocking at first glance, these things are pretty much patterns, especially in cities and tourist hotspots all around the world. We'll also do an honorary mention of the knife crime in the UK, the rising epidemic of knife crime, particularly in London. Something that in Thailand, like, I just would not be afraid of walking, even in the biggest cities like Bangkok or even Chiang Mai. I would not be worried about getting stabbed in the middle of the night or robbed. It may be also worth looking at the mugging statistics. So how likely are you to get mugged in Thailand versus in London? All food for thought. And my conclusion, therefore, is that fleeing Brits don't have anything to worry about coming to Thailand. They don't have anything to worry about Thai people. You are going to live a safer life here. You probably have some worries about other things, but that's for a different vlog. That's for a different topic than today. But don't worry about the crime. And there are ways to stop sexual exploitation of people. I think that if you are on any particular register, that you shouldn't even be allowed to travel into the country or into Southeast Asia at all. In fact, you should have your passport confiscated if you happen to be on any register of any previous convictions based around the exploitation of young people. And then also don't frequent the seedy places of Thailand. I think this industry is probably a dying industry as well. That's just a personal opinion. Some people won't share that opinion, but I think it is a dying industry. There are just new ways to do things, and a lot of the Thai women are empowered in other ways now, starting their own business, not being kind of confined to the bars, and there's just a lot more opportunity that technology also helps. And so I think that it probably is over the years going to shrink or die a death. But yeah, we need to keep the pervs out. So if there's no customer for such things, then there should be no demand for such things, or we can at least decrease demand for such things. And that's my thoughts on it today, guys. So Hope you're well, and big love to all my friends in the UK. I'm a big fan of the UK. In fact, we're going to be raising a Union Jack here on the farm very soon, Damo and I, along with the Thai flag, of course. So look out for that vlog. This is not an indictment of the UK, but it probably is an indictment of the BBC. So all the best, guys. Take care.